So let's talk about when you should raise your prices in your detailing business. Now that's something that we're all going to want to achieve. That's a goal that you should always be striving for, is to raise your rates, because you can, there's several ways that you can make money. One is getting more customers. So if you're servicing 4 customers per week, servicing 10 per week makes you more money. They could be, doing upsells upsells to the customer. So if they're initially going to be making up numbers here, a $100 detail, you upsell them to something, now it's $150. And then another way is just by simply increasing your rate. So instead, right now you're charging on average $25 an hour, and you keep the same amount of customers, do everything the same, but now you just change the rates to $35 an hour. Same work, same amount of customers, but now you're just making more money per hour because you raise your rates. Now I'm not going to get into details like you should be charging $20 an hour in your first 3 months, and then jump to $35 after your 6 months. That's not how it works, especially when it's your business and you call the shots on what you want to charge and what your prices are going to be. That's all dependent on you and your market, your skill set, your professionalism, your reputation. That's all going to take into account in terms of how you're able to change your rates, how quick, and what the market bears. So that aside, so with me and my business, your number one factor to raising your rates, in my opinion, my experience, what I always say, is that it's going to be how many leads you're able to generate on a daily and weekly basis. Meaning, right now, if you only have 5 people just calling you, not customers, not book paying customers, but just 5 people calling you per week about your services, and you're able to close 1 or 2 on a given week, well, that's only 5 people you're talking to, and that's only 2 customers that you're getting per week at max, right? So if you're already only getting 2 customers out of 5 people calling you, and you want to raise your rates even more, are now out of 5 people, are 4 people gonna say yes to you now that your prices are even higher? No, of course you have anomalies, and sure, like some weeks will be better than others. That's and then you have some weeks that are worse than others. That's of course that's gonna happen. But generally speaking, if you're still only getting 5 people calling you per week, and then you try to raise your rates, you're not gonna get more customers that way, because you're just now more expensive. Everything is the same except now you're just more expensive. So the thing you should be focusing on most, that will really dictate how much and how fast you can raise your rates, are how many people you get to inquire about your services on a daily and weekly basis. So it's so let's say if you were to get 5 calls let's say out of 5 days, right? So 25 calls per week as opposed to 5 calls per week. The person that's getting 5 calls per week, which 5 calls per day, 25 calls per week, that person, it doesn't matter if they've been in business for 30 days or 30 months. If that person is getting 5 calls per day, Monday through Friday, they can easily jump the rates from $20 an hour to $70, assuming they're doing everything right, assuming they're targeting the right clientele, assuming they're actually offering great services and great customer service, assuming all of that, which I'm just going to assume that's what you're trying to do, because what else? Why else would you want to offer anything less than that? But assuming all that is true, that person can jump from $20 an hour to $80 an hour if they immediately go from however many calls they're getting to 5 calls per day and 25 calls per week. Why? Because you have the volume there. Like, you have enough people calling you to where you can raise your rates. Plenty of people are going to tell you no, but you're going to get enough people to say yes that you're going to stay booked out day after day, week after week. So you're looking at probably tactics right now of like, well, what can I tell them? How can I tell them? Am I able to add more value somewhere to raise my rates? And those are all valid questions, but the real thing you need to focus on is saying, hey, if I'm getting 5 people calling me per week, I need to get that to 5 people calling me per day. I need to get that 5 people calling me in the first half of one day, every single day, and then get another 5 people to call me the second part, so like 10 calls per day, Monday through Friday. That's where you start just raising your rates exponentially, because there's supply and demand. You have too many people wanting your services, and there's just not enough you to go around. So you're gonna have to raise your rates, because now if you can, again, making up numbers here entirely, but if you can jump from let's say $40 an hour to $100 an hour, Now you're more than happy to take on a lot less work, but because you're charging such a higher amount per hour, it's okay that if out of 50 people, you only take on 4 customers, because those 4 customers are very, very high paying jobs. So the real I guess premise or thing you have to focus on is, hey, focus on your marketing to get more leads into your business, which will convert to more customers. And the more leads you can feed into your business that get into the pipeline, the easier it is to say, hey, yeah, now we're charging $30 an hour. And plenty of people are gonna tell you no, but enough people are gonna tell you yes to stay busy. Then you can jump in. So like the timeline between my raising the rates, over like a short 6-month span, I went from like 140 or like, I don't know. Now it's been so long ago, and I actually didn't think about this before I started making the video. But it was in a short time frame where like I started getting a lot more calls, like a significant amount of more calls than I was earlier, like a few months back. So I jumped from like 30 to 40 to 50 to $60 an hour, like in the span of a few months, because I was just getting a lot more calls. I was getting a lot more reviews. I was getting more people to know about my services, and it's just that's just what happened. So the quicker you can get more calls and more demand for your services, the easier life gets. And I know it's easy. It's more, it's easier said than done, because now you have to look at, hey, I have to be a marketer. I have to focus on marketing. Well, how do I get more calls? How do I get more people to know about my business? Well, yeah, that's going to fall into the marketing side of things. That has nothing to do with running of detailing, of like the technical how-to and the product and the chemistry and the technical, like it has nothing to do with it. Now it's saying, hey, how do I run Facebook ads? How do I run Instagram ads? How do I write the copy? How do I create the landing page? How do I work on search engine optimization? How do I, optimize these YouTube videos? So you're going into a completely different realm when you're talking about, hey, how do I generate more leads? There's so many methods, and I'm not getting into that subject here of like which marketing channel, because there's so many and you can do so many things. But the important part here is like the core thing you have to look at is, hey, how do I get more people to call me for my services? And I'm telling you, it's not going to be a quick fix. Like, unless you have $5,000 sitting around where you can just throw it into Facebook ads and do Facebook ads well, you're not just gonna like instantly start generating a lot. Like, it's gonna take time, as everything else is in life, right? That's worthy of. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take a lot of effort. But yeah, so the main core thing is, how do I raise my rate? So once you get past that phase, and it's like, okay, how do I raise my rate? So there's going to be 2 segments, right? There's going to be your current customers, and then there's going to be you can break it down much more granular. You can have your current customers that you service already but haven't seen them in a while. You can have your repeat customers. You can have brand new customers, however you want to segment that. But let's just say between completely new customers and current customers. With the new customers, you don't really have to do anything there. Like, if on Monday you get your 5 calls and you're charging on average $25 an hour, on Tuesday for all those new customers, you can just start charging $35 an hour. Like, there has to be no big announcement or anything like that, because it's your business, it's your pricing. You may have someone that's like, hey, I had a friend that just had your services last week, and for the same size vehicle, you charged them, I'm making up numbers here, $100, and now you're charging $150 for the same thing. And you just clearly and honestly and transparently, give them the answer, and you say, oh yeah, we just decided to raise our rates, last week or whatever, or what have you. But it's just being honest, like, hey, this is a business, we're gonna raise our rates, like, what do you? And then that's on you if you want to give them a little leeway and be like, oh, okay, you know what, that's fine, like I'll get you in for whatever the price that I got your friend in. But it's as simple as that. Now, with your current customers, let's say you have customers on a maintenance plan. That's dependent on you and what those terms were for that maintenance plan. Usually with that, you'd want to send and I know people like to send like cards to their physical address of like, hey, we're raising our rates, yada, yada, yada. I would just text or email, just because, like, who really cares about getting a card in the mail? Like, they're already tired of getting mail in the card, all that junk mail. Like, make their life easier, save some money, save the planet, just send them a text and say, hey, we're, whatever, we're raising our, and you just clearly state, hey, Doug, I've been servicing you for the last 30 months at $60 per maintenance, whatever. Over the next on, let's say 2 months in advance, on if it's September right now, then in November you say, hey, November 15th we're going to implement new pricing and it's going to go up by X amounts. I'd be more than happy to keep on servicing you, but if the price change if the price change is not accommodating your price range, word it to fit your style of writing, then we can continue until November, and then you can look for another detailer, whatever have you. Word that how you want. I didn't go and write a script for this video or anything, but you get the point. You just want to give them a well enough notice to where it's like, hey, yeah, we're gonna change pricing, and if it if you're going to change the pricing, it has to be not significant, but if it's a $5 increase, I mean, you're wasting everyone's time. Like, if make it a little bit of a jump to where it's like, okay, you have to notify people. Like, don't go from like, okay, we're charging 60, now I want to do 65. Like, get this contextually to you. I don't know all your details. Don't follow exactly what I'm saying and be like, just make it fit your situation. But yeah, it needs to be enough to where like you actually have to let them know, because if you're like, hey, $5, like, you're kind of wasting your time. That's not a big difference. That's wasting their time. It's like so make sure it's a little bit of a price gap that warrants for you to actually reach out to everyone. But yeah, so and you are gonna have customers drop off. Like, it's just a natural thing. Like, there's no you're not gonna save everyone, right? Like, some people are gonna be like, okay, you know what, that's enough. Like, you're already like meeting some people's threshold, or like they're already kind of budgeting you in, very tightly. So if you increase it $10, $15, $20, $50, $60, $100, you're gonna lose some, just because it's just the way a business is. You're gonna open up more slots. Now you have a potential to get more people in at that higher price range. So don't sweat if some people do leave. But I'll end the video right here. Hopefully it helped you out. The reason I didn't use this thing is because I'm running out of paper. I need to go get another little, whatever they're called, to flip and write stuff. So anyways, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feedback, leave those in the comment section down below. Let me know how you did it when you raised your prices in your detailing business. Maybe it'll help out some other people watching this video. Other than that, check the description box down below for the resources and guides, and I'll see you on the next one.